Pandemic and Flashpoint Fire Rescue, two cooperative board games where you're either curing the world of 4 deadly diseases or rescuing a group of victims from a burning building. For me, a lot of the thought processes that go into these two games are very, very similar, so I want to compare them to each other. I'll be comparing them on the balance between strategy and luck, on replayability, and since both of these games market themselves as family games, I'll be putting that to the test by questioning them on how well they strike the balance between being accessible for beginners and yet strategic enough so that more advanced players can enjoy them as well. So without further ado, let's start with a very important part in any board game, the balance between strategy and luck. The balance between luck and strategy is an important one. In Pandemic, you're given just enough information to be able to plan your moves a little bit in advance. You can preempt where the outbreaks are going to occur and where the worst hit areas are. Especially after the first epidemic, you know which cards are then going to come up in the infection deck, and you can basically move around strategically and try as best as you can to keep those disease cubes under control. Luck still plays a role in this game, absolutely it does, in the terms of where the epidemics occur and things like that. But you are given just enough information to be able to make a long-term strategy. On the other hand, Flashpoint Fire Rescue is a lot more reactionary. Fire and smoke pop up by the randomness of a dice throw. You can't really plan your moves in advance because of that. You don't really know where the fire is going to go. But I've said before, I actually quite like that element of this game. It fits the theme an awful lot better than if you could in some way predict. Fire by its very nature is unpredictable, so that mechanic fits this theme. It's just that when you're playing it, you can't really make a strategy and you're, please pardon the pun, you're basically putting out fires from go to go. In terms of making a strategy, in that regard, Pandemic is the clear winner, in my opinion. Now let's move on and talk about replayability. In terms of replayability, Pandemic is absolutely excellent. Every game you have a different role card because they've been handed out randomly. Obviously the disease cubes occur in different places, you get epidemics at different times, and of course you get different playing cards that you need to cure the diseases and therefore win the game. I think the way that the roles are used in Pandemic really does mean that having a different role each time means that you have to think differently because you have to be thinking, how do I use my role to best help the team? Your role will be different, the situation will be different. This is a very, very replayable game in my opinion. Flashpoint Fire Rescue approaches the question of replayability in a slightly different manner. As I've said, you don't really know from one move to the next where the fire is going to pop up, how things are going to spread, are there going to be more explosions? And in that regard, if you don't know from one move to the next what's going to happen, then of course you don't know, you can't use the same strategy every single game that you play, you can't really approach them in the same kind of manner. So the reactionary nature of this game that makes it less strategic is actually where this game gets its replay value from. Also, I'd say with Flashpoint as well, you've got the family version, and then you've got the experienced version, and you've got 3 different difficulty levels in the experienced version. You can play this game a long, long time before it starts to get repetitive and before it starts to get too easy. So yeah, in my opinion, both games very, very much have a lot of replayability, and whichever game you should buy, if you're thinking of buying one or the other, you will enjoy either of them for a very, very long time. When it comes to that balance between being accessible enough for beginners and first-time players, and yet still being challenging enough and still being deep enough for should we say, more experienced board gamers, that's one of the areas that I think lets Pandemic down slightly. Pandemic is a very, very difficult game. You can play this a lot and you still don't necessarily win every single time. I can say when it comes to accessibility for first-time players, I've never met anybody who wins this game the first time they've played. If you win this game the first time you play, please let me know in the comments because I'd be really, really impressed with that. Usually, the first time you play Pandemic, you're really just kind of figuring out the mechanics of it and basically trying to work out what is it I'm actually supposed to do. What I said earlier about it having a lot of strategy, well, that actually comes at the cost of accessibility. The thing with Pandemic, not only is strategy possible, and not only is it possible to have a deeper strategy and to think things through in more detail, and for that strategy to be different in different games, but it's absolutely necessary to have that. And of course, it's impossible to have a deep, well thought out strategy that you can adapt based on the board that's in front of you when you're playing a game for the very, very first time. Again, Pandemic is an excellent game, but more so for experienced board gamers, and way more when you've played it a number of times than it is the first time. Having said that, this is the point where I really feel that Flashpoint Fire Rescue absolutely shines. It's one of the great strengths of this game. The premise is so simple. You're firefighters, you run into a burning building, you're putting out some flames, and you're trying to rescue some victims. That is very, very accessible for people who are not so into board games. To be honest, it's something that even kids can understand. I mean, slightly older kids, but it's something that you could theoretically play with kids who are interested in gaming, or adults who are not interested in gaming. It's very, very accessible in that regard. But I also think there's enough things that you can do that for people who are more interested in board gaming, you know, there's enough things to think through, there's enough things that you can kind of go, okay, what should I be doing that, should I be doing that? Because when it's your turn, you do usually have a number of options. So if you're a slightly mixed family that maybe has some people who love board games and some people who like board games slightly less, and maybe even some children, this is a very, very good game that is gonna fit all needs, basically. So when it comes to the balance of being accessible for beginners and yet still nuanced and deep enough for more experienced gamers, Flashpoint wins this one hands down. So which game is better? Well, if I could just stay firmly on the fence for a minute, it purely depends on your board gaming group. If you're the type of people who like deep strategic thinking, you like a bit of a challenge, because this is a very difficult game, and you like being able to think things through in advance and make a strategy and discuss things with each other, Pandemic is absolutely the game you should go for. If you're more of a mixed group, where some people really like board gaming, some people are slightly newer to it, maybe some of them are even kids, then absolutely Flashpoint is the one that you should be going for. So it purely depends. My opinion, I'm a very simple guy, I like simplicity. For me, Flashpoint is the slightly better game. I've also got to say though, that experiment that I did where I tried to win Pandemic without even moving, that has slightly ruined the game for me a little bit. Whenever I see it now, I think, well, yeah, but I did that thing, and I don't want to spoil the video, but like I did that thing and that went like that, so yeah. So for me, I personally prefer Flashpoint Fire Rescue, but if you like deep thinking, you like a strategy, you like going for something a little bit more advanced, then Pandemic is still an excellent choice. There's a reason why both of these games are considered classics, and yeah, which one you should buy purely depends on what type of group you are. But yeah, if you've played both of these games, I would love to know what you think down below. Please write me a comment and subscribe if you haven't already. This is very much a one-man, one smartphone and some free editing software type of YouTube channel. So I really love it when somebody comments or subscribes or even just gives me a like or something like that. So, you know, I won't go on about that for too long. But yeah, I'd love to know what you guys think down below. And if nothing else, take care, goodbye, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.